Good evening. It is 6 p.m., our new early time, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Petrielli, when you're ready, I'll speak slowly. Would you please do the roll call for us? Thank you.
Espino. Here. Lang.
Here.
Mencia.
Here.
Petrielli here. Reed is absent. Sager.
Present.
And Schumacher. I'm here. Okay, we're all present.
Thank you. Let's all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to turn it to our new superintendent, Dr. Bresnahan, just to share a couple procedural elements about our meetings tonight and going forward.
Thank you so much. So, as you know, we are in the midst of different phases in the Restore Illinois plan based on the governor's executive orders. So based on the fact that our region is now fully in phase 5, we are correcting our procedures and updating them so that we have removed our capacity limitation. So we are no longer capped at 25 people in person. We are still asking for our, various mitigation layers and practicing some social distancing, but we are excited to now fully welcome our public back to our meetings. And with that, that means that we will also be asking for all public comment to take place in person. So this item that you see at the head of our agendas will no longer be there. We will not be accepting them via email. So we welcome public participation in person. Thank you.
And just to add to that, I did receive a number of public comments for tonight, and since we hadn't formally made this announcement, we will read all of those public comments that were sent via email to us as of tonight, but this will be the new procedure going forward in August. So let's move to 4.0 and 4.01, which is our formal welcome to Dr. Bresnahan. We do not have a special PowerPoint presentation, sadly, but this was just an item that the board requested be added to formally welcome Dr. Bresnahan, to introduce her to our community, to any staff, families, community members that might be watching tonight. So I would like to begin by just sharing a little bit of background on the hiring process for Dr. Bresnahan, her qualifications, and why she was selected as the next superintendent of District 59. The Board of Education is honored to welcome Dr. Terry Bresnahan at her first official board meeting as superintendent of schools. Dr. Bresnahan began on July 1st, 2021. The board conducted a thorough search process through the search firm School Exec Connect. The process included gathering input from all District 59 stakeholder groups and produced a large pool of candidates from diverse professional backgrounds and geographic locations. The board had many excellent candidates for this position. Dr. Bresnahan rose to the top because of the depth and breadth of experience she will bring to the district. She is a strong advocate for all children, and she has been an outstanding leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion work. The board believes that her previous work in a district with very similar demographics as District 59 will prepare her for success in leading our district. She was able to significantly close the achievement gap in her prior district by conducting annual audits of curriculum, as well as creating adoption cycles for curriculum and resources. Dr. Bresnahan plans to continue that practice in District 59 to make sure the curriculum is meeting the needs of students and teachers. Her previous experience as an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction will prove extremely valuable as our district continues to work to strengthen our teaching and learning to best prepare students to be successful for life. Dr. Bresnahan brings a very strong background in education. She served as the superintendent in Berkeley School District 87 for 6 years. Prior to her role as superintendent, she served as the Berkeley School District 87 Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction. Dr. Bresnahan's previous experience also includes as a Director of Technology in District 64, Park Ridge Niles, as well as technology positions in Addison District 4, Avoca District 37, and River Trails District 26. She started her career in education as a middle school math teacher before becoming an elementary teacher in San Bernardino, California. Dr. Bresnahan holds a BS in elementary education from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, a Master's of Science in Education in Educational Technology from Azusa Pacific University, a Certificate of Advanced Study degree from National Louis University, and a Doctorate of Education degree from National Louis University. She is also a mother of 4 children, ages 16, 14, 10, and 9, and the proud wife of Brian, a middle school teacher. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bresnahan to the District 59 family. So I know I speak for myself, my fellow board members, and many people in our community when I say we are so thrilled to welcome you tonight, and we look forward to this journey together with you. And I want to invite any of my fellow board members who would be interested in sharing a personal word of welcome to do so.
Sure.
I definitely do. Mardell, do you want to do first? I think you're supposed to. So, when we were looking at when we were looking at qualifications and the perfect fit, there wasn't anybody that came even close in my eyes. I think the breadth of experience that you bring, the open door policy that you are sharing is just like a breath of fresh air. And I can't wait to see where we can go together to bring this district back to what it used to be many years ago when my 4 children went through. I just know it's going to turn around, and I'm really excited to start that journey with you.
Should we go now? You want to go?
I'm just so happy to finally meet you because we hired you on Zoom. So, I mean, this is really a thrill to finally be in the same room and working with you. After listening to all of that, I bet you didn't realize how much you had done. I've been on the board for over 30 years, and I've seen 4 superintendents come and go. You're my 5th superintendent. And during all that time, obviously, there were things that we needed to look into and change and do, which we will have to continue. But we've always been a really excellent district, and I think you're coming into a wonderful position, and I'm sure you'll do a great job, and I welcome you.
Yeah, and I'll add on top of that. You know, when we started this process, what was it, like November? You know, I mean, it was a long time ago. And you think about the situation of all the schools and all the state in November. I mean, we had a lot on our plate. Everything looked a lot different than it looks today. And I know there were some questions is this the right time? Should we be doing this? You know, we don't know what to expect. What's going to happen? Is it really, you know, the impacts of change? You know, and I remember talking to some of my colleagues here saying, you know, we don't know who's going to apply and who we're going to interview, but it could be someone that's going to knock on our door that is really going to turn, you know, this district upside down in a good way, who's really going to impact how we do things, you know? And that's what we saw when we met you via Zoom, you know? But the important thing is it's a you know, we're turning the page. It's a blank page, and we have the opportunity to do things that we've never done before. And you're leading us in that. But it's not just you. It's you both, and you and all the parents and the parents listening to us on Zoom that can really make this district what we want it to be. And we're going to help you do that, and you'll help us, and we're all a team here. So it's really exciting because, like I said, we started a long time ago, and now we can actually, you know, get to work. So congratulations. Like we weren't here.
Well, all of that. Plus, well, sadly, I wasn't in the process of hiring you, but, you know, just the first time I saw you, you just get this vibe from you that, you know, it's welcoming. And that's what we need. You know, we need people that feel welcoming to everyone else and the parents. And me as a parent, that, you know, that's good, right? I know this is a new board and I'm new here, but you know, it's a new board, new start, new beginnings, and hopefully we can turn this district around. I mean, I think personally as a first-time parent here in the district, I think it's a pretty good district, but if we can make it an amazing one, let's go for it.
Hello, welcome. So I know I said this during the campaign running for school board that and I want to make sure that you hear it from me as well, right? That your strengths match up so much with what we feel that this district needs to improve on, and the areas that you bring your strength to are the areas where small changes can make a huge impact. And I really look forward to seeing what you do. And I love the focus on curriculum, and I love started it as a math teacher, go STEM, right? So, and I think that attitude of continuous improvement is something that all of us really want to see, and we'll build on from where we are, we'll build forward. So, thank you.
Well, I would just like to say thank you. It's very hard to sit and hear such wonderful things and be in the spotlight on this, but I think that mindset around continuous improvement is what brought me here, because I want to continue to grow and learn in my role, and I felt exactly the same way. Even though it was on Zoom, I think I was in a position where I was looking for something that was really going to be the right fit. This was the only district I was looking at. It is the only district that would have given me the opportunity and the motivation to leave where I was, but it was that exact fit, and I felt it every day since the moment I was announced to now, you know, having my first week under my belt, that I feel very well matched with what I see as everyone's passions here. And it's an amazing team so far that I've had the opportunity to work with. I think this is an amazing district, and I think, Joe, you said it, those little changes are what can take us from like good to great in all the best ways, and we're here for the kids. And I'm excited for the amount of parents that have reached out just openly and honestly, and so warm and welcoming. The staff, it's just been an amazing start. I feel like I've been here a lot longer than I actually have. So it's good to start feeling like home again. So thank you all so much.
Courtney, would you like to introduce the other new person at the SLT table?
Oh, yes. Can I defer to Dr. Ossel to make an introduction?
Well, actually, I will, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I, you know, one of the best opportunities that I had coming in when I did was the opportunity to help fill some vacancies, and especially at the administrative team level, it's really a great opportunity for me coming in. And so I had the privilege of serving on the, you know, search team for our new assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. And I know we all, you know, the team really misses Maureen, and I didn't get an opportunity to work with her too much. But I think Susan Savage rose to the top of that list very quickly. And her knowledge as a building principal within District 59, coupled with her strong instructional leadership, I think made her the absolute ideal candidate and standout for this role. And I know she is going to be my right hand in this work, and it's already just jiving and clicking and the level of excitement. So I'm very excited to have Susan on this team, and for us both to have our first days together was really nice. And I'm really appreciative of the board's support in keeping that position and allowing Susan to be here.
Welcome.
All right. I'm sad to leave this agenda item, but we need to move on. So item 5.0 is comments and suggestions from the public. As I mentioned, this meeting will be our last meeting taking voicemail or email comments. I will read about 9 of those tonight that I've received via email, but first I want to read a little introduction and give our audience members an opportunity to present your public comment before the ones that were submitted. This is the point of the meeting where we welcome public comments. Although comments may be made on almost any matter related to the operation of schools, comments will not be allowed concerning individual students or staff. Any comments related to individual students or staff should be addressed in private with the superintendent. Please limit your individual comments to 3 minutes. Robert Mancia, thank you, Robert, will serve as timekeeper and will give the speaker notice when there are 30 seconds remaining to allow the speaker time to complete or summarize their thoughts. The board's attorney has advised the board to maintain a consistent rule regarding the length of time an individual may take to address the Board of Education. Doing so safeguards the freedom of speech rights of each speaker to be treated equally. If one person is granted additional time, then all speakers henceforth will need to be treated similarly. This is a business meeting of the Board of Ed, and the board must conduct its business in public and must complete that business in a timely manner. If you wish to provide written comments to the board, they will be included in the meeting minutes. Such meetings are not held for discussions with the public. While it is the practice of the board not to respond to public questions or comments during the meeting, board members do listen attentively and carefully consider the thoughts and topics you present. Has anyone here come to speak before the board tonight? Anne, please come up. Oh, please come up first.
I'm assuming I'm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, this is my first time coming here. My son went through school, District 59, and we were very grateful. He graduated and went on to Purdue. He's an engineer now, so they've served us well. I guess my concern is I'm seeing a lot of, on, the internet is stuff about this critical race theory and equity education, and I'm just hoping that our board is not going to go down that path. Our school is too good for that, and to divide our children based on this, I think, is the wrong way to go. So I hope that that's taken into consideration when you're picking out curriculum. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you please share your name with the board so we can include it in the meeting minutes?
Lori Feldy.
Thank you, Lori.
Mhm.
Hi, my name is Ann Wing. I'm the DEA president. Dr. Bresnahan, we wanted to welcome you. The DEA is super excited that you are our new superintendent and the work that you're going to be leading us in, and we're all ready to go come August 9th, except for Ridge, I think, is starting in 2 weeks. I also want to thank the Board of Education. I think this past year has been incredibly difficult for all of us. And as I sit on different union meetings, I see how lucky I was to be part of a Board of Education that was so supportive of staff and students, and there's no arguing or fighting, and I can't even tell you how much I appreciate all the work that you guys have done. You guys do not get paid for the work that you do, and it's all volunteer, so thank you for everything. And to the administrators, it's a great team. All these people I've worked with for the last 5 years, they're amazing people. So I'm happy to be here. I'm super excited. Thank you.
Sure,
Thank you, Anne. Okay, so I will launch into the public comments that I received via email. The first is from Mika Koval. She writes, I am hoping that next school year our kids won't have to wear masks to school. I think that if parents and teachers get vaccinated, children under the age of 12 shouldn't have to wear masks in the fall to school. Is it really fair to tell adults they don't have to wear masks, but then make children wear them all day at school? We know who is at risk of succumbing to this virus, and children do not fall into that category. Data shows kids are at least 3 times more likely to be hospitalized or die in a car accident than from this virus. They are also 3 times more likely to die drowning. So anyone who lets their kid ride in a car or swim is okay with this routine level of routine risk. That's probably nearly everyone. Out of the small amount of children who contract COVID, only 0% to 0.19% of children are dying from it. 10 states have reported no child deaths. Credible international reports suggest that children are at extremely low risk of harm from COVID, with a 99.99% recovery rate. In fact, scientific studies show that the virus is almost entirely transmitted by adults. For kids, there's nothing more important than facial expressions. I am hoping that kids under 12 get exempt from mask mandates at school so school can go back to normal for them. We have to trust parents to make responsible choices for their children, choices like keeping kids home when they're sick. The presence of a virus that barely affects children is no reason to remove parents' choice now that the teachers have been vaccinated. It's time to make sure next school year is normal for all our kids. Signed, Monica Kowal, mom of 6-year-old and an 8-year-old from Claremont. Second public comment is from Angela Rose Fabiano. Hello, District 59 School Board and Dr. Bresnahan. I am happy to hear that the CDC has only recommended masks for students, even those who are not vaccinated. I am happy to hear that it is not required nor mandated. I am also happy to hear that it is up to local school boards to make decisions when it comes to COVID-19 safety procedures, even though this has always been the case. With that being said, I'm urging our school board to allow for optional mask wearing for families who choose. I am demanding we allow parents to be the decision makers when it comes to our children's health. I'm insisting we provide our children a normal school year. Our children have suffered enough physically, mentally, socially, and academically. Enough is enough. Parents are becoming more and more informed about their rights as parents, especially against an illness that has little effect on their children. See Wall Street Journal article. There are many new studies being presented that highlight the harms of masks, both from a social-emotional perspective and from a health perspective. See JAMA Network Pediatrics. And I believe these all contain links that have been forwarded to the full board. Illinois is just about 60% at its vaccination rate, with patients having at least one dose. See Mayo Clinic Vaccine Tracker. And in our area of Cook County, we are pushing 60% IDPH vaccine administration data. Testing is easily available. We have layers of mitigation strategies to help stop COVID-19 transmission. We are working together to stop COVID-19, but we have to do so without harm to our children. Let the children breathe. Let the children play on playground equipment. Let the children learn. Let them do so without the need for a mask. Please stand up to teacher unions who will fight back and insurance companies who think they can deny us insurance. Please ask them to show you the written law that says students must wear masks. They can't because it is unlawful to require a medical device that is a mask in a public place, one's workplace, classroom, or school. Please stand up to the political bullies. We have the opportunity to set the tone for our surrounding area. Many other school districts and states are making masks optional. See Burbio School Mask Policy Tracker. Only 9 states have mask mandates, and 8 have actually banned them. Please let District 59 be one of those promising districts. Below are the links to the studies and information I mentioned above. Thank you for your time. Angela Fabiano, 2nd and 3rd grade parent. The next public comment comes from Rosa Krizak. Greetings. I'm looking forward to today's meeting as a community member and grandparent. I hope there is an engaging discussion about getting our kids full-time back to school with socialization in mind, ability for children to work together on projects, and even do some field trips, as in previous years. I hope the leadership team thinks outside the box and ensures kids can have proper hot lunches and recess. Please, please, please remove as much screen time this year as pre-COVID. They need as much teacher and kid time this year versus using computer apps. Also, please consider options for mask or no mask wearing for kids. Considering it's an option in other states and areas, it should be on the agenda for us as well. Look at metrics for our district zip codes. Teetering at less than 1%, we should allow for parents to make educated decisions for their children if they wear masks or not. Rosa, grandmother of 2nd and kindergarten age student. The next public comment is from Beth Violate. Dear board members, I am hoping that next school year our kids won't have to wear masks to school. I think that if parents get vaccinated, children under the age of 12 shouldn't have to wear masks in the fall to school. Is it really fair to tell adults they don't have to wear masks, but then make children wear them all day at school? The COVID-19 school guidelines passed down by the CDC all across the nation are unnecessarily harming our kids by spreading more fear and confusion. Our kids have been traumatized as much as adults, if not more, by the pandemic. It's time for us to make sure next school year is as normal as we can. Many school districts and local health departments are basing their face mask policies on this CDC guidance, but the CDC has flip-flopped on its position several times since March 2020, leaving many confused. Now the CDC is recommending that children wear masks all day long in school, despite the fact that these practices are not evidence-based and there's no long-term safety data on such practices. Moreover, of the small amount of children who contract COVID, only 0% to 0.19% of the children are dying from it. 10 states have reported no child deaths. Credible international reports suggest that children are at extremely low risk of harm from COVID, with a 99.99% recovery rate. In fact, scientific studies show that the virus is almost entirely transmitted by adults. For kids, there's nothing more important than facial expressions, and I miss seeing their little faces at work. I am hoping that kids under 12 get exempt from the mask mandate at school so school can go back to normal for them. Sincerely, Beth Violate. The next public comment, I believe I have 4 more to read, is from Kathy Mizarts. Hello, District 59 School Board and Dr. Bresnahan. I am happy to hear that the CDC has only recommended masks for students, even those that are not vaccinated. I am happy to hear that it is not required nor mandated. I am also happy to hear it is up to local school boards to make decisions when it comes to COVID-19 safety procedures, even though this has always been the case. With that being said, I'm urging our school board to allow for optional mask wearing for families who choose to do so. Parents should be the decision makers when it comes to their children's health. I'm insisting we provide our children a normal school year. Our children have suffered enough physically, mentally, socially, and academically. Enough is enough. Parents are becoming more and more informed about their rights as parents and how to manage their children's health, which includes not forcing them to wear masks just for symbolism. Additionally, why does the district never talk about considerations for children that cannot wear masks for various health reasons? We pay property taxes the same way that the rest of the community pays and should have a right to send our children in person also and have accommodations provided. Please stand up to teacher unions who will fight back and insurance companies who think they can deny us insurance. Please ask them to show you the written law that says students must wear masks. They can't because it is unlawful to require a medical device, that is a mask, in a public place, one's workplace, classroom, or school. Please stand up to the political bullies. We have the opportunity to set the tone for our surrounding area. Many other school districts and states are making masks optional. Please let District 59 be one of those promising districts. Having one child that is just about to start kindergarten and has not even had a chance to experience what it is like to attend school pre-COVID, I am not going to let her start school under these types of restrictions and have the anxiety of starting a new chapter in her little life while also having to worry when a teacher has to keep reminding her to ensure her mask is above her nose. These are the years that are supposed to be fun for the kids. Having been very involved in the school ever since my son started kindergarten by being a member of the PTO and class mom, I know firsthand how fun and enjoyable all the parties and events were for the kids, and my daughter doesn't deserve anything less. Having said that, if the fall reopening plans do not change in terms of mask being optional for the children, as my family's last resort, we have every intention of unenrolling our children from the district. Thank you so much, Kathy Misstarts, kindergarten and 3rd grade parent. The next public comment is from Luna P. Dear Board, today you will be discussing the return to school plan. I am writing to provide input from me as a parent and hope to see our kids back to not only full schedule 8:30 to 3:30, but also to be able to socialize outdoors on playgrounds during a real recess and availability of hot lunches in schools. The cold lunch options were very limited, and if you haven't tried them last year, we're subpar. I also hope that with other districts, we allow our parents the flexibility of mask or maskless for our kids soon. I'm unsure what the plans are for continuing for quarantine if there is a positive case in the classrooms. If that is still the plan, I hope you will allow for testing versus a 2-week quarantine that some kids had to do and miss out on weeks of in-school instruction. I hope to hear good options from today's meeting as the kids need a positive and nurturing environment. Luna, Brentwood parent. Just 3 more brief comments. The next is from Joanna Mazon. Good afternoon. As we are approaching the board meeting today, I have reviewed today's agenda and did not see anything related to the mask recommendation for students and staff. With the new CDC recommendation, will masks be recommended only, and will students' parents have a choice to select if a child should wear a mask? With the vaccines available, I would like to ask the board to allow students to return back to school with the option to wear a mask instead of having it as a requirement. Being that my children are returning back to school on July 21st, I believe it is important to review this. Thank you, Joanna Mazon. And just for a quick point of clarification, I received this earlier in the day and I wrote back to Joanna to tell her that the back to school plan is an item on the agenda. I apologize that it wasn't clearer on the agenda, but we'll be discussing the back to school plan in the superintendent's report tonight. The last 2 comments are from Denise D'Alessandro Bianca and Joe Bianca. So first, Denise. As a parent of a District 59 student at Robert Frost Elementary, I would like to voice my opinion and preference for the 21-22 school year in asking that it be parental choice for wearing masks. I do not believe that my child should be forced or required to wear a mask. Denise D'Alessandro Bianca. Joe Bianca. As a parent of a District 59 student at Robert Frost Elementary, I would like to voice my opinion and preference for the 21-22 school year in asking that it be parental choice for wearing masks. I do not believe that my child should be forced or required to wear a mask. Joseph A. Bianca. That concludes our public comments. So let's turn to,
Courtney?
Yes.
Before we move on, 4 of those, I don't believe the full board received. Some of them went to all of us. Can you just make sure that we get them all forwarded to us at some point?
absolutely.
And can I just add on to what you said before, Courtney? Now that we are in open session again and people can come to our meetings, we won't be reading these emails that come to us. However, that does not preclude the public from sending us emails. We all get them, as Joe said. I mean, we will all get them if there was a mistake made. And we do read them, but they just won't be read anymore.
Thank you for clarifying, Mardell. So that's correct. We will not accept public comments via email, but if you'd like to send a message to the board or you have questions or comments to send to the board, you're always welcome to send those and we will respond as appropriate.
Yeah. And then just to further clarify on that point a little more, I think a lot of parents in our community probably came to their first board meeting via Zoom during the pandemic, so that was probably their first experience to it. But we are going back to the process that was in place pre-pandemic as far as the public comments. So it's not, shutting it off. It's just now that we're back and reopening, we're going back to that process again.
Very good.
Can I just clarify one thing? We're still gonna keep doing the Zoom that parents can connect to from home, correct? Is that true?
As of now, yes, unless the board has a discussion and a will to change it, but that was our intention.
Yeah, and what we're doing right now is not, it's not Zoom, it's a live stream on YouTube. So the video right back there, that camera, showing a single point of view, and it's not like, we have a switcher that shows what the content is on the screen there, but that's the extent of it. So it doesn't show like what we saw in the Zoom presentation, but it is a live stream. And also an important part of that is to make sure your microphone's on, Patty. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Otherwise, the people at home cannot hear you.
Yeah.
So I saw a couple of you helping each other out. That's awesome. Please keep doing that because that's the only way people can hear you at home.
And another nice thing about the YouTube is you can time shift it easily. It stays up, so parents can
Yes.
watch it later.
Yeah, you can go back and the archive is posted so people can go back exactly and watch the parts that they want to watch and fast forward or whatever or repeat. So, yeah.
Thank you.
There are currently 72 people watching.
Excellent. I think it's a positive thing that we're able to make it more accessible going forward. And again, we, as Robert pointed out, this was the traditional practice for the public meeting pre-COVID, that public comments were given in person, but that shouldn't stop you from, again, emailing the board if you have questions or comments that you would like a personal response to. So we're now going to move to Section 6.0 discussion items, and the first discussion is 6.01 discussion of revisions to the board working agreement. I want to give a little bit of context to this, which is that on June 21st, the full board met in open session and then moved to closed session for our annual board self-evaluation. And how that works is a member from the Illinois School Board Association leads us in a very directed self-evaluation process where we talk through our goals and objectives, why we're on the board, and then we go through some of our own internal guiding documents to just take a look at them with fresh eyes and determine, is there anything we want to update? Is there anything that we'd like to tweak? And so this agenda item is coming out of that conversation. We were privileged enough that even though Dr. Bresnahan hadn't officially started, she joined us for this as well. And a lot of these internal documents do talk about protocols for how the board communicates with itself and with the superintendent. So it was really helpful to have a baseline of expectations of how we'll work together going forward. So we want to share together at this point a conversation about some revisions we made to that board working agreement. It would be great if we could pull those up. And essentially, I'll explain to you that when we were in this self-evaluation, I took notes on revisions we wanted to make Those revisions are reflected as suggestions in this board working document, and now's our opportunity to discuss as a board each of those edits and say, do we want to formally make this edit, or do we want the wording to look differently, because this was my suggested wording based on our conversations.
Are the revisions in this one that we got in the packet?
I don't know.
They're in here.
Yeah, I would expect
Because
they
I
are.
didn't see any paper out of the desk for me.
I left it with Denise. Do you want me to go?
If you can find, if there's anything different than this, yeah.
There's maybe like one or two edits, I think.
So I think we can move through them fairly
Yeah.
quickly. I made note of all the areas of edit. So the first is in section 2 at 7A and B. And this is talking about communication and emails. And we had deleted a section about emailing SLT members apart from the superintendent, and just tried to express that whenever we have a question, even if it is a budgeting specific question that might logically go to Ron, that we would start it with the superintendent so that she is aware of it. And then she can either collect that information from Ron, or she can connect us with Ron. The idea being that we might then have direct communication with Ron as a follow-up, but that it would always be channeling through Dr. Bresnahan. So do we have any objections or clarifications on that change?
No objections or anything, but just a comment for the people at home. This document is available online on our website. You can open it anytime, read it, and it's basically an instruction manual for how we operate. The rules and, our roles here on the board, what we do. So I know sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions as to the power that we have on the school board and the limits that we, what we can do and can't. But it's a really interesting document. It's not that long to kind of explain our roles and responsibilities and how we operate.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert. I think that's helpful. So the next point is in section 10 section 2.10. So just a little bit up, and no problem. It's just a small addition of one word. So we added that board members will include the superintendent in any pertinent conversations or questions. This was the word we used, but I think the idea was basically, if I'm wishing happy birthday to Cindy, I can send her that message and not copy Dr. Bresnahan. Do we feel that?
Or for those of us who are parents, if we're talking to a teacher, who's
Right.
our kid's teacher, we don't have to.
We
talk
don't have to
Dr.
copy
Bresnahan
Dr.
every time.
Bresnahan on our own correspondence in a different role. So do we feel pertinent is the appropriate word here? And
Yeah.
okay, super. Okay, the next one is section 13E, and that actually internally links to a social media document. So this is a document that was created, I think, since I was on the board, just as changes develop, wanting to set expectations about board members' use of social media. So the two changes to this, I believe, Joe, you pointed out that in section B, there was a blanket statement, any use of social media by multiple board members violates the Open Meetings Act. Joe said, wait, are you sure that's the case? And we agreed that it could violate.
Yeah.
It looks like that is not reflected. Maybe there was an issue with the linking here, but
Yeah.
we would like to change it to indicate could violate instead of just violates.
May
Violate.
Yeah.
There we go. May violate is probably best. And then letter F, there was a point about board members responding on social media, and this addition is included in this draft. On the second line of F, you'll see it says substantive District 59 issues. It's a similar comment as I was making with regards to the email to Cindy, where if Patty would like to congratulate Sarah, who just received an award, she can say congratulations because it's not sort of a District 59 issue per se. It's just a word of congratulations, a word of acknowledgement. So we felt that by saying substantive issues, that it would show that we're not opining on district matters on social media, but we have a little bit of freedom to convey words of congratulations, basically.
And we're not saying that we are representing the district when we're making our response.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's important because, like Courtney said at the top, you know, this was written a couple years ago, and we need to continue to review these policies and adapt them and update them, because a lot of us use social media, and we may get questions from the community to our personal social media accounts asking us about why the district is doing A, B, and C, and this is the reason why we can't respond. So it's not necessarily that we don't want to respond or that we are ignoring you, but there's limits as to what we can do in responding to certain types of comments.
Thanks, Robert.
You did refresh the page, so that is the live version.
Excellent. And I think I had said could violate, but I liked someone's suggestions better. May violate. Should we go with that?
Yeah.
Let's go with may
What number
violate.
are we on?
We are on section 13E of the board working agreement. Sorry, it's section 2, item 13E, and then it has an internal link within it to this social media document, because we didn't want to sort of crowd the board working agreement with this whole thing on social media, so it's internally linked. Then we're going to move to section 17, item 17 of section 2. And this section is about board attorney communication. We recommended just a more organized and transparent approach for attorney communication, because previously the president was tasked with attorney communication, and oftentimes those would be phone calls. And so you start to get into a game of telephone where we're wondering exactly what questions were asked, exactly how was the answer phrased. And when it's important as a legal issue, we really would like to get both the questions and the answers from the attorney fully in writing so that the whole board is informed. So the change that we recommended is that all questions for the board attorney should be collected by the liaison that will either be the president or the vice president, who will send a written message to the board attorney. We have already talked with our board attorneys about would that be appropriate to then get a written response back. They have agreed to that. And then that written response will be pushed out to all the board members so we can be confident that we're all getting the same information. So are we comfortable with that phrasing? Excellent. Okay. So now we're in section 4, which is working together with the superintendent. And we added a section 5 that I think is really important. So we have our board meetings on Monday nights, and the board gets an agenda often on Thursdays, like a finalized agenda. So a lot of times as volunteers, we are reviewing these items over the weekend before the board meeting, and we are shooting off questions. And I think we've always had a bit of an anxiety of, I'm sending a message at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I don't want the superintendent or their staff to feel like they need to respond to us by 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. So we wanted to actually formalize it here that board members may email the superintendent after regular business hours. However, there is no expectation that the superintendent will respond until business hours resume. And I've always found all of our superintendents, including Dr. Bresnahan, to be incredibly responsive, and we want them to have the discretion to respond when works for them. So are we okay with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Does this also include texts?
Yes. Yes, I mean, that's something we could add.
We should.
I think we should, because that's an important clarification. So why don't we add
Yeah.
and text messages?
What are you adding, Terry?
And text messages.
If we
Pardon me?
Text messages.
Oh, text messages. Okay.
So that it includes all those inquiries. And our next section is under section 5 of the working agreement. In section 1, we wanted to add reference to the committee of the whole meetings, because this is a change within the past couple of years. This board used to meet twice a month. We decided that we would like to do our business kind of more efficiently and have the board meetings once a month with committee work happening simultaneously, and that more granular work could happen in committees. We'd report on that in the monthly meetings. But we did find that we wanted a few extra large group meetings, just not every month. So we have deleted the 4th Monday to be consistent with our practice, as we only meet the 2nd Monday. And we've wanted to add that committee of the whole meetings will be added on an as-needed basis. And that's actually something we'll discuss later in the agenda tonight. We've mapped out all our board meetings for the next year, but we'd like to add to that the plan for when our committee of the whole meetings will occur. So I think that's pretty non-controversial. Okay. And then section 8 is our last point. This is about our board members, and we decided that we would add a comment that we will make best efforts to stay on topic and encourage fellow board members to do so, really in a friendly way. We're all colleagues, and so sometimes when we're talking about one point, it can easily stray off topic. But due to the fact that it is a public meeting, we have staff members attending, we feel we owe you a duty to be respectful of your time, be respectful of the staff's time, the superintendent's time. So we wanted to encourage each other to have the freedom that if we do see that a colleague is straying off of topic, that we respectfully correct each other and move on. And that is the balance of my edits. So I think, Cindy, I'm grateful to you for tracking these for us. And any further discussion items related to those changes?
The edit items are not in this.
Okay, so perhaps what we can get you is a redlined copy on paper. Maybe we could work that out
Of
with
the edits.
Cindy to print you a
Because
redlined
this is-
version.
This is the original.
Okay, okay, or we highlight the changes or something. I can assist with that too if need be. Okay. So I'm going to move to item 6.02, which is discussion of the board governance cycle. Robert had pointed out that this board working agreement appears on our website. This board governance cycle also appears on our website. And it's essentially an accountability mechanism as well as a calendar to ensure that we as a board are both setting goals that align with the strategic plan, and then we're holding ourselves and the administration accountable to follow up on those goals in measurable ways. So you'll see it's this sort of circular calendar where in June, the board self-evaluation, which we had on June 21st, occurs. We start to, at this point in the year, develop our strategic plan focus areas. A lot of this work had to be backburnered during this past year because of COVID-19. Like, we had just done an update to our strategic plan that looks out for the immediate future as to what our goals are. Because we couldn't, amidst all of our changes during COVID-19 pandemic, really start to get into the meat of those goals, we are now sort of starting fresh now, looking at that new strategic plan and about to determine what will those objectives be. And I think we're lucky enough that it does coincide with Dr. Bresnahan's arrival. So it feels like a fresh opportunity with new leadership to look at these goals and start to develop objectives. So you're welcome to take a look in further detail about what this cycle looks like. I'm not gonna walk through every piece of the calendar, but again, it's about goal setting and then accountability for those goals. Like, what are our assessments gonna be? When are we gonna review that assessment data? And then we were scrolling down, you can find at the bottom of the page these controlling board documents, as Robert had pointed out, the working agreements, new board member orientation, board agenda calendars, committee assignments. So what I'd like to ask tonight is to just defer to Dr. Bresnahan to talk to us a little bit on what she feels the next steps are as we pick up strategic planning and trying to develop our implementation goals.
Sure. So I think from a strategic planning perspective, and we've had the discussion, the starting discussion with our administrative leadership team, is to really think about how we need board direction, but we also need then input from the staff and from our leadership team. So we wanted to kind of get, I guess, a general sense around what has been established as part of the strategic plan. Are we in a solid place to move forward with the 4 identified goals that are within there, and really then just take the next steps, which are the missing piece of the key performance indicators, which seem to be the next piece of that puzzle. I know we have a committee for the strategic plan as well, which I believe, Joe, you are on, and Courtney. So what I thought we might do is have our first meeting. I would build up a little bit of more background from a board perspective, and community perspective, then bring that back with our leadership team so that we could really identify what's already in place and in progress. And then hopefully at our September committee of the whole meeting, have a real in-depth presentation and discussion. Where are we reflecting on this last, year and a half? Have any of these goals changed based on the pandemic and the impact of that? Or are we in alignment within these goals to, frame our work for the upcoming year, as well as our long-term goals around the plan? So that was my initial thoughts. I think it's really important that we stay in alignment from a board perspective and from the leadership perspective, so we are meeting the expectations and meeting the needs as designed by the plan, and being willing to admit if something's in here that is no longer working or is no longer the direction that we need, that we come to the table and have that discussion.
Besides you and Courtney, who else is on that committee?
Joe.
Joe, okay. Good.
So I guess a question for the board. Would you like to share your feedback at all with Joe and I in advance of that committee meeting? Or would you prefer in the August meeting to have a discussion item devoted to this so that we all share with the group of us? Because I suppose that could be an alternative to gather feedback. So do you have a preference on that?
I like the August idea.
Yeah, I would go with the August idea. Let's all just talk about it here.
With the second idea?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would also point out, the strategic plan, we're gonna need input from other committees, because there are financial goals and that sort of thing that would go to the finance committee naturally. And so there may be when we come back, we may say, well, we think the strategic plan group can work on these, but there's other committees that need to work on some of the other goals. And then the board can push it back to the committees.
That makes sense.
So what would be really helpful if we do a full board discussion in August is to come knowing what are the key pieces of information and updates that we need in order to move forward in each of those areas. And that way we as a leadership team can prepare those things and pull together all of the data and pieces so that when we go to our planning committee meeting, we can really better identify and kind of lay out the big picture kind of framework about that'll guide the work.
So does that mean that your committee will meet first to sort of organize it and then bring it to the meeting? We'll discuss it as a whole, and then you'll go back to work?
Yeah, I think it would need to go, we would discuss it, it would come to the board, and then it may need to go to multiple committees, because some part may need to go to curriculums, some may need to go to finance, and, because I don't think we'll necessarily know everything we need in just the strategic planning committee, unless you feel that.
No,
we-
and that,
we
well,
will.
no, I think you'll have input, but that's why I think if that is the frame for the discussion at our August meeting, is to do a kind of look at each of these goals, know each of the committees that you sit on, and say, okay, what are the components that I as a board member need to know in order to know that how these goals are gonna work for us? Does that make sense? And then we would take that, digest it as a committee, and then we'd bring it back for a full discussion at the committee of whole in September. Does that, and we can always add more, more opportunities for us to speak as we go through that kind of fact-finding process. And I'm sure, my team out here has a lot of input as well that can contribute and help guide our conversation as well.
You were using this as your template, correct? For the strategic
That's
plan?
I think that was more the strategic guidance for the board, but I'll defer to Tom.
The governance cycle dates back to 2015, and while it's has been tied to the strategic plan, it was really more associated to the focus areas for the year. So when we would report out, that data would be specific to the focus area, not necessarily the strategic plan. So can that tie together? Absolutely, absolutely, and especially since we went through an update in many of those areas of the strategic plan.
I think
tied
that's a good
directly to
idea,
the-
Tom,
the
because
work.
this is basically more January, February, and April, and it doesn't really matter when it happens as long as we get the right things that we're working on.
Yeah, a lot of this was tied to when data came in to the district.
True.
State testing, benchmarking periods, which obviously can change or adjust depending on what's the focus the board want. I really appreciate that. What does the board want and need to see? Then the plan's developed by that, not, well, we have this cycle. So because we're benchmarking, now we have to report out. It could look very different. Totally agree.
So just to clarify, what you're asking from us is to come back to that August meeting thinking about what are the key pieces of information we would need to understand whether we've met these particular goals laid out in the strategic plan?
I think that would be part of it. And then if there's any additional pieces that the plan is missing now that we're sitting, you know, a year and a half later, each of you has your, you know, ideas and thoughts and background related to this. I think it would be helpful for me to hear those perspectives and say, this is what we're really looking for to know that we're on track with our strategic plan and that our strategic plan is still relevant and meaningful to the work that we're doing. So I think that from a starting out point, I would really like to know that. Because we could dive into this work and start working on this, but if there's something else that's burning that we don't talk about, we're gonna miss it.
Okay, so I think with that, unless there's any other questions on this point, any other questions? Nope, okay. Let's move to the consent agenda, 7.0. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda, 7.0, A, B, C, and D, 7.02, A and B, 7.03, A, B, C, and D, and 7.04, A, B, C, D, E, and F, and 7.05. Is there anything that has to be held back that anybody wants to pull out? Then that's it.
Thank you, Mardell. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Patty.
Okay. I'm gonna go in order. Espino. Aye. Len.
Aye.
Mencia.
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed is absent. Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Awesome. All right, so we're moving to section 8.0 action items. Do I have a motion on 8.01, which is approval of K&M printing donation?
I'll make the motion on this one. Be it resolved that on the 12th day of July 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the donation from K&M Printing Company of $530.06 to purchase 2 Chromebooks, which will be raffle prizes at the district's back-to-school events in August. Be it further resolved that when the donation is received, the superintendent shall communicate to K&M Printing Company in writing, expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Robert. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Patty.
Then Len.
Aye.
Mencia.
Aye.
Petrielli, aye. Reed absent. Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Espino.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Great.
Thank you. Item 8.02, approval of the additional treasurer's bond. Just real quick for a piece of context, I'm sorry I didn't ask you this in advance, Ron, but would you be willing to just share like 1 minute of background about this?
Absolutely. So Lloyd's of London is typically our provider of the treasurer's bond. However, they're getting out of the business with school districts. So they only provided up to a certain dollar amount that Illinois School Code 8-02 requires. So for this year, one of our agents, if you will, said that they can find somebody else to provide the additional amount, and this is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Any questions from the
And then
board?
just for my own knowledge, we pay like a percentage of, we need a bond in the amount of 63 million, and we like, what does the district actually pay for these things?
Anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, do I have a motion on 8.02 to approve this additional bond?
I'll do it. Education, Be it resolved by the Board of Education, Community Consolidated School District 59, Cook County, Illinois, as follows. Section 1, the board incorporates the foregoing paragraphs of this resolution as is set forth fully herein. Section 2, the board hereby approves this second school treasurer's bond as presented by July 1st, 2021 to July 1st, 2022 to fulfill the required amounts up to $63,319,843 as presented. And Section 3, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its passage.
Thank you, Patty. I'll second.
Okay. And Mencia.
Aye.
Petrelli, aye. Reed is absent. Okay. Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
Espino. And Lang.
Aye.
And the motion passes. Did I skip you, Courtney?
No.
I didn't? Okay.
We're good. Thank you. So we're to 9.0 special interest topics, and 9.01 are the FOIA requests.
Good evening. The Human Resource Department has responded to 2 separate FOIA requests since the last report to the board.
Thanks, Ross. Section 10, new and continuing business and announcements. We'll start with 10.01, which is discussion of committee meeting dates. And I am not sure who is leading this portion.
I will
Oh,
take the
thank
lead
you.
and then I'll pass it off as appropriate. So I believe at a previous board meeting, the committee assignments were approved by the board and everyone stepped up and took their committee assignments. So we actually added an additional column to at least get our first meeting dates for those committees. And then what we thought we would do at those first meetings, then the committees could decide their schedule moving forward, and then we could have those posted accordingly. So some have gone ahead and put in their specific meeting dates in here. Some are on a regular basis, so it follows that regular schedule. So we wanted to get that out here. If there was any input or comment or suggestions on dates, or from the team, if there's any input you need from the board in order to set your dates, now is the time for that discussion.
And then if I could just add to that too, for our parents at home, the committees are open to the public. You can come if there's a topic that you are interested in, from finance to wellness to, behavioral intervention. You can join those. You can join those meetings, and you can participate and be a part of that team and part of that discussion. So they're open, and I invite you to look and join. Super committee.
Yeah, yes, correct. Good point. And we did have our first meeting already facilitated by Ron, so we can update that on here. I didn't want to make any change as to what was approved by the board, but we can make an updated copy to reflect that.
So then right now, do we need to fill in the blanks for the dates that are missing? Is that what we need to do here?
So I'm going to defer to our team. If there's anyone who did not schedule their first committee meeting date, if they need input from those that are present, or if they want to make arrangements to get in communication with them to at least get those first meeting dates, and then we'll publish those out for the full board and to the public.
Also, just wanted to mention that the Finance Committee used to meet for the first hour, and the second hour, the maintenance and materials, and now we've combined them, and it seemed to be more efficient.
Agreed. And so, for example, that one meets the Monday prior to the board meeting, so 1 week ahead of time. So that's kind of already scheduled and in progress. So that takes care of both the finance and the facilities. The safety is really on an as-needed basis, so I'll turn that to Dr. Ossel if she wants to update on that.
The safety committee last year was created and began related to several specific requests of the board for research and discussion. Since then, we've concluded those discussions, and Ron and I, in our conversations, thought that it may make sense to keep that as needed. So if there is a safety concern that is not addressed in the Behavior Intervention Committee that also talks about student safety, we can certainly then call a meeting, make that public, get that information out to our community and go forward. So unless there are feelings otherwise, that would be our plan.
Plus, just going off of Katie, so for safety, for example, when we talk about cameras, when we talk about anything within that range, it mostly falls under the facilities committee already as it is. So we don't want to waste time with the board.
And I think, Robert, you're a board member on that committee. Do the board members on that committee support just setting it up as needed? Do you want an initial meeting, or do you feel as needed as works for you?
Yeah, you know, not that I'm adding work or saying, I'll think of some topics for us to discuss, but I'll reach out to the two of you just so I can get an idea of what was discussed last year, just so I know and for my own knowledge. But we'll play it by ear and go as we go.
Thank you.
I think the other one's outstanding, the school nutrition committee, but that I'm gonna look over to Ron when I look at the person who's responsible for that.
Yeah. So yeah, we meet in May for that one. Stacy Manuel ran. She was kind of in charge of it, and Mr. Reed was there as well. Mrs. Schumacher. It was a very good meeting, and we will continue to do that for the one time.
Excellent. And then I think the others have that in there. The strategic planning committee I got the information I needed, so I will reach out to Courtney and Joe to get that first meeting scheduled. And then transportation is 3 times a year. And Ron, do you want to speak to that point?
So last year was a bit of an anomaly, I mean, considering with the way the year went. So this year we will meet 3 times a year. Last year was just everybody was from home for half the year as it was. But transportation committee, we do look at, we talk about the routes, we talk about the safety of the routes, we talk about everything that you can think of. We bring the transportation companies as well. So that will happen this year.
Susan, have you looked over the schedule for curriculum meetings?
Yes, I put the first date as September 23rd as a starting point, and then thought as a group we could determine the next 2 dates.
We should be sure to get that out to the public, because we do have quite a few people from the public who come to those curriculum meetings.
Great, we will do that. Yeah.
And we hold them here, so that if you have materials or books or whatever to bring, there's room here to spread it out.
Perfect. I'll take note of that. Thank you.
Is that this one, Mardell, or is that the one where it's the parents are involved in the committee? Is that the other one?
It's the only one I've ever been to. I'm on the curriculum committee with
Me too,
Maureen.
but I mean, there's also the one where the parents have input.
Well,
with
I've
it.
been to both. I mean, I'm at all of them. I get the same notification, so I go to all of them.
Patty, I do believe that is a separate functioning group, and those parents have actually reached out to me. So Susan and I just emailed her back today, but Susan and I are going to coordinate a time to meet with them and really determine the future steps and need for the input through that process, and kind of explore how that partnership's going to work. So that is separate, or maybe one of the ideas is that we combine forces to have a really well-attended board committee for curriculum, which might be ideal.
I don't think that you and I were on the same committee, because I don't remember you being at the meetings that I was at.
Yeah.
Were you?
There.
Were you? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I just didn't notice you there. There are quite a few people who come to those meetings.
But it would be a good idea to blend them.
I think
that
so
would be a
too.
great idea.
Yeah.
I agree. Are there any other committees listed here? It sounds like we're good to go. So thank you to the admin for scheduling those and reaching out to us if you have not. And I think we are good to move to 10.02, which is committee of the whole meeting topics. And I think this also might be committee of the whole meeting dates. So this is what we referenced earlier, that now that we've gone from 2 board meetings a month to 1 board meeting a month, which has been the case for over a year, that we have these supplementary meetings to dive deeper on a particular topic, or also to just discuss a point of interest. So What are we, do we have a proposal on committee of the whole meeting dates, or do we want to just discuss?
Yeah, so there are, after looking at the calendar, we have 3 committee of the whole dates already scheduled. There's one in September, one in January, and one in May. And after getting some historical perspective, that was really kind of a carryover from last year. So that gives us 3 committee of the whole dates. I did have a chance to meet with Randy, and he had given some suggestions. Obviously, I think we've already locked in September for a strategic plan. I know that we are doing a lot of work around the equity piece, so we were thinking the equity audit and data from that might be one of our topics. I think we need to have that coincide with when that data is going to be ready and available, as well as Randy had suggested the math curriculum. I really feel like that should be an ongoing update embedded with all of our meetings. If we need something, maybe an end of the year type, recap, that might be more of an in-depth committee of the whole. But I feel like that should be a standing item in terms of progress around our implementation. And then he also suggested, he said learning loss. I'm moving away from that phrase. I'm going to talk about learning acceleration. I think we really need to give ourselves time to assess what impact the pandemic really had and how we can accelerate learning that may have been missed as a result of that, and capitalize on other learning that took place that we didn't anticipate. So that might be something that we take a deeper dive into in regards to assessment, or really being able to monitor where we are. That might flow a little bit into the strategic plan as well, but those were some initial starting topic ideas. So I don't know if we want to schedule any additional meetings, or if we want to, how we want to do that, but those are the 3 on the calendar, and those were some of the suggested topics.
Dr. Bresnahan, when does summer school end?
Summer school is now officially over, I believe.
It is officially over. So then at the next meeting, we could get a report on the successes or lack of our progress toward catching up in the summer school.
I believe that we would do an update at the next board meeting on the summer program. I'll defer to Tom.
Yeah, I believe we've traditionally done updates. I don't know that we'd be able to provide a learning acceleration update connected to that because of the lack of data, but an overview of what happened.
General,
Sure.
Because we couldn't.
How many kids attended, things.
There were some things that were working against us and so forth, and I just want to know what was this. Just give me the successes.
Would be a great superintendent's team report maybe at the next meeting.
Yeah, good.
For our new members and also some parents at home, what is a committee of the whole?
Oh, that is a great question. I'm so glad you asked, Robert. So committee of the whole, as opposed to our regular business meetings, are really where they're more discussion and not actually taking care of action items. Committees of the whole, in their purest form, we would not be having a consent agenda. We would not be putting other items on there. The danger in having committees of the whole is that we creep into that, because by going to once a month, there's a lot of business that takes place, obviously, every day in between. So if we really want to maintain the integrity of one business meeting a month and then these committees of the whole as needed, I think we have to all be in agreement that that's what the purpose is. And as we put in our agreements, stay on topic, and that's a commitment from our team as well, that we are going to be proactive and get our agenda items that require board action for those business meetings, and try not to creep into time for the committees of the whole.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move next to.
So sorry, Courtney, real quick. So are we good with keeping just the 3 dates for now?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. And just to clarify, I think we're putting those where we would have formerly had a board meeting, which is the 4th Monday on those months. Okay, thanks for that. All right, so the next item is reports of the Board of Education. Does anyone on the board have a report to make?
I pretty much gave mine on the Finance Committee before.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Facilities and Finance Committee, we had a meeting, and shortly we're hoping to see information about camera updates and this long-term planning document, this spreadsheet, and it will hopefully be coming up while we're doing budget stuff at the same time, so people will see that we're doing a good job planning for the future as well.
Thanks, Joe. If there's no other reports,
We just did mention at the meeting that it was important after the recent situation we had here that we have good camera situations, so. I think
Thanks,
we should move
Martha.
ahead with that.
Okay, so we will move to section 12.0, superintendent's reports, and specifically 12.01, school reopening plan update.
Excellent. So lots to discuss here. Obviously, it is a hot topic in our community, and we fully recognize the urgency and the desire for parents to be able to plan and for our students to know what lies ahead, especially for our Ridge folks who will be joining us very shortly. But as always, when it comes to these things during this pandemic, we are dependent on the ever-changing guidance from CDC, flowing to IDPH, flowing through ISB, to really give us some direction to ensure that we are meeting expectations, but also the ability, where are the options that we have to really respond to our local context and our community needs, which I think is really important. So the guidance from ISB was released on July 9th. So first it came from CDC. They were actually very efficient with IDPH and ISB to quickly turn around that they were fully adopting that with some caveats. So as you can imagine, our board packet was already put together and out, and now guidance came on that Friday. So I really appreciate the public comments that came in tonight, because I know that that is absolutely one of the concerns of our families. So we are actually awaiting further guidance. We have our local context, we have our local health department that we need to be able to consult with to, in fact, verify our transmission rates and how we have been doing this summer. We also want to look at our other area schools to ensure that there is some alignment and around those needs. And then we also want to hear from our legal counsel as well as we implement these things to ensure that we don't add additional liability to the district unnecessarily. So those are some of the things that we are expecting in the near future. But what I can say in terms of our reopening plan, what we do know now is that we are returning to a full traditional schedule. So we're going back to our original start times, end times. We are going back to our full regular meal service. I heard that in a couple of the comments, returning to our breakfast program as usual and our lunch program. That was something explicitly stated by the guidance, which was really great news for us to hear. One of the things also that has really come out of Cook County Health Department is the acknowledgement that transmission from surfaces was relatively low. So the opportunities to play on our playgrounds and to share materials and resources they're pulling back on, and really then re-emphasizing the importance of washing our hands and sanitizing. That was like the number one thing. So we again have fallen into now our social distancing. They've pulled back from the 6 feet to more of the 3 feet. But I think the resounding message that we heard is that none of these things should be barriers to allowing all children to return to school. I think that is the message that we want to share tonight with our community. That is the message that will be shared in our official reopening plan that will be posted and shared with our families, is that we are committed to all students returning to as normal of a school year as possible. We are going to continue our mitigation strategies around cleaning, sanitizing, all of those things, and continuing to use those ESSER funds made available to us from the federal government to really allow us to provide those additional resources and functions for our buildings. But we know that right now there is some lack of clarity around the guidance around masks. So before we make any public affirmative thing about what our stance is going to be, I think we need to take the time to hear from those other factors and then layer that in. One of the things, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Ossel for further comment or to take questions, is one of the things that ISB put out right after their guidance, and I just like to read this aloud because I think it's important for our community to hear, so that you know the process that we're going through. This is at your place settings as well. But while the CDC guidance has come out that Illinois has fully adopted it, it says the CDC continues to recommend masking and physical distancing as key prevention strategies. However, if school administrators decide to remove any of the prevention strategies for their school based on local conditions, they should remove them one at a time and monitor closely with adequate testing through the school and/or community for any increases in COVID-19 cases. Schools should communicate their strategies and any changes in plans to teachers, staff, and families, and directly to older students using accessible materials and communication channels in a language and at a literacy level that teachers, staff, students, and families can understand. Schools should work with local public health officials to determine the prevention strategies needed in their area by monitoring levels of community transmission, for example, low, moderate, substantial, or high, and local vaccine coverage, and use of screening testing to detect cases in K-12 schools. A school in a community with substantial or high transmission with a low teacher, staff, or student vaccination rate and without a screening testing program should continue to require masks for people who are not fully vaccinated. I think this clarity that came out gives us a lot better understanding about where our boundaries are. And it also is one of the things that we want to talk about and that Dr. Ossel will be exploring further is opportunities for testing. I also heard that as part of public comment. It is not something that we currently have in place, but it is something that is afforded to us if we chose to do it on a voluntary basis. So that is something that we're going to further explore about doing that either within our schools or opportunities to partner with other organizations to allow that to happen. Dr. Ossel, anything you want to add?
I'd just like to reinforce that truly a theme throughout all. I'll just reinforce that a theme throughout all of the guidance is very clear that we are to move gradually in removing mitigation strategies when our numbers are very low, when we have low transmission rates. And currently in our area, we have very low transmission rates, which we're thrilled about. And to add mitigation strategies on if that changes. So we will continue, as we have in the last year, to be very cognizant of any changes in our metrics in our area, and to be looking at our internal metrics as well to see when we may need to layer on additional mitigations or when we're able to remove mitigations, because we certainly want that return to normalcy as quickly as possible. We also don't want to move too fast. We want to ensure everyone's safety as we return to school.
So that is a great question, and that is actually something that was very clear as guidance put out by ISB, that remote learning is available only to those students who are under a mandated quarantine. That definition of quarantine and the requirements around quarantine seem to be changing slightly, especially vaccinated versus unvaccinated, the definition of close contact, et cetera. But that really is the stance that the state board is taking. If there are students who medically qualify for homebound services, that is afforded to them through our homebound policies that are already as embedded in any given year. So that is also one of the things that we've done outreach early on. I think before I even started, we surveyed our parents to ensure, you know, the message was out there and to identify any maybe medically fragile that may be exempt, you know, from the in-person learning based on that criteria.
Are we eliminating the daily check-in symptom screener?
We will still require self-certification from our parents, as in we want them checking for symptoms each and every day. We want to make sure that they are in contact with their child and they're looking over their child for those COVID-19 symptoms and keeping them home as needed. But we will not require the online form this year. We also will not be doing temperature and screening checks at the door, as CDC and IDPH has not recommended them. And really in children, they don't always present the symptoms that adults do. And so that screening has not been found to be as effective.
Let me ask a dumb question, because I'm just confused on the masking process and what powers we have as a school board and as a district. And the reason I say this is there's a lot of news regarding school districts reaching out to the governor asking for local control, as they call it, to make these kind of decisions. You know, and there was a lot in the public comments as well, and also even here in the recommendations of You know, the CDC guidelines say anyone that's not vaccinated must wear a mask. However, you know, local, you know, school administrators could decide to remove certain of those strains. So, like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? So I guess that's where I'm really confused. Where, and it comes back to what we were talking about with the working agreements of reaching out to our district council. Is this a situation that could cause us liability, may cause us liability, will cause us liability? Because I think one school district, I think it was School District 10 in Southern Illinois, was put on probation because they removed the masking requirement. So it's just kind of like, I'm trying to do my own homework here as a school board member myself, and it's confusing, and I'm not 100%. And I will admit I'm not 100% as to what the school board can and cannot do as far as masking.
Robert, I think first of all, it's not a dumb question. I think it's exactly the question that we're all asking ourselves. And a week ago, that was the case, where districts were being threatened with probation and non-recognition for their boards that were adopting no mask policies. Now that we received our new guidance, and if you notice, there's words like recommend and should, but not must or require, and the difference between what ISB said versus what CDC is saying, that's where it's now in the legal hands, because I think that recognition of that people were taking local control. So to violate an ISB policy would be a great liability for us. Now with this change in guidance, I'm not sure where the liability line is. And that's why I think our legal counsel is going to be really important, as well as knowing that ISB is going to continue to clarify its guidance in the coming days and weeks, and that will help guide us as well.
Yeah. Because even now, we have approximately, 45 days until the general population comes back to school, I guess, right? August, give or take. And I'm expecting a lot will change in that time, because if we've learned anything over the past year is that each month is completely different from the one before it. So it's do we make a decision? I'm asking here today? No, but it's continuing to look at it and see where things are next week and see where they are 2 weeks from now, and do the best for our students and community for the first day of school. So there's time.
I think the main thing, after seeing the emails that we got from some very, very agitated parents who were very emphatic that they did not want the masks, that they should know, all parents should know, that we are not just making up our minds on the run here. We are listening to everything that the Illinois Association of School Boards tells us, everything that's coming from all of the official places. We're discussing among ourselves as a board. We're listening to what the SLT and the superintendent are doing. We're not just jumping in, and we're going to do what's best for our children, both health-wise and comfort-wise.
Thanks, Marzel. And I think throughout this entire process of COVID, we're going to take the advice of the health professionals that advise us, whether it's the CDC or the Illinois Department of Health. So I think that's important to understand, that we're trying to make as informed a decision as we can from those professionals who study transmission rates.
But even tonight, you can see progress. Look at our audience and our board members in SLT. We aren't wearing masks for the first time in a long time. We are all vaccinated, for, as far as I know, for the most part, and we're distancing ourselves in all over the entire room. So we're making progress, and hopefully that's the way it will just continue in the next couple months.
Thanks, Mardell. Joe had a comment, and then Patty.
Yeah, so my question was on masking. It's specifically guidance for indoors. Have we made any determinations about recess, outdoors, that sort of thing?
Masking is not recommended while outdoors.
Right, so we'll be bringing back recess and full recess.
In fact, it is now mandated to have unstructured playtime, 30 minutes per day. So the state is giving us some very clear perspective on where some priorities lie. So absolutely, that will be coming back.
So I'm trying to find the spot where we can guarantee that this is the good part you'll see, right? So students can go outside, get back on the playgrounds. Okay, good.
I have a question that goes back to, I do have it on. I actually remembered this time. Goes back to the kids that are going to be on remote because they're on quarantine. So is that going to be something separate, or is that going to be something that the teacher's going to be teaching that student on their computer as well as teaching their class? I just want to throw that
So
out.
I will field the initial and then I'll throw it to the team because I think that's an important question. I think part of the issue is that you're talking about a very short and hopefully very small group of students that will apply. So the idea would be some type of blend of either synchronous or asynchronous learning to ensure that their learning continues. But in order to do, it will not go back to what we were doing previously, I think, if anyone's fearing that. But to address those needs, I think part of it is going to be what is the magnitude of that and what is that frequency, to looking at really how does that look. Katie, did you want to chime in on that?
We also can consider that right now, because we are in low transmission, it's likely that our local health department, the Cook County Department of Public Health, will recommend the 10-day quarantine, not the 14-day quarantine that we were seeing with students at the end of last year. So it is a somewhat shorter window as well.
But what we used to do when kids were sick is you'd get the work that they were going to be missing together, and then that would somehow be delivered to them at home, as opposed to the communication over the computer. So I don't know if that's what we're going to go back to, or if it would be an online kind of thing.
So I think once we have better clarification around definitions of close contact and requirements for quarantine, and I already have a meeting in the works with Anne because teachers need to be a part of that discussion once we have clarity around our parameters, and then we'll need to discuss what logistically will work out best to meet the needs of our students so that they don't lag behind, but still recognizing hopefully that it's a shortened period of time, not as long as before.
Because ultimately, isn't that also going to come down to how many total quarantines we have? If things stay low and there's a student here or there, it's not a big deal. But if we start getting big numbers, then we have to come up with something else.
And and the planning and the what ifs to build towards something that may prove to be smaller. I think the other piece of the discussion that we haven't even touched on is that a lot of this is the growth that we've seen is contingent upon the vaccination. And Mardell, you brought this up. Why we're sitting here is because of that fact.
Right.
So as we look and hopefully anticipate, I've heard October, the beginning of October, as soon as that for those under the age of 12 to be eligible and have that vaccine ready. So it has been the game changer in education. I think that's why we are now seeing these abilities to reopen is because of vaccinations. I know we're already working on communication to the community about the importance of the vaccinations and how that is an integral part of us reopening and staying open.
Have you worked with Mayor Johnson in Elk Grove Village to see if we are able to do it in any form at all with any of our students through Elk Grove Village? Because he had a wonderful plan, starting with all the seniors and all the other adults, and just about everybody in Elk Grove was able to get it done with the use of the gymnasium in Elk Grove and the use of the druggists from the Jewel. So it's possible we could still come up with some kind of a plan, at least for this side of the district.
Well, I know that there are people clamoring to partner with schools for vaccination events on site. So I hosted them in my last district. We will take every opportunity that we can to make them available for those that want them. I think it's right now what we're seeing is that dip in those getting vaccinated. So now we need to educate and hopefully get people to understand that this is how we're gonna take off our masks and how we're gonna play together and learn together in person. So hopefully we'll combat it from both of those opportunities. But happy to reach out to mayors who want to partner with us at any time.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Thanks, Katie. So you had mentioned, and so did Dr. Bresnahan, that we're trying to explore opportunities for testing. So if a student who is subject to a quarantine does produce a negative COVID test, can that shorten the window of the quarantine from the 10 days to returning to school earlier?
The 7-day quarantine window is only recommended for adults at this time. So if a child is a close contact and they are not vaccinated, then it is recommended that they finish the 10-day quarantine timeframe.
And thinking of the bus transportation, the decisions for masking requirements on the bus, was that made by the bus companies or is that made by the district?
That is a recommendation from CDC. So in their new guidance, they very specifically say that on buses, all people must be masked
Yeah.
at all times. So that's coming from CDC and then adopted by IDPH.
Okay.
And I'll just say, Robert, I took a Lyft ride this past weekend, and they are still, the company is mandating if you're sharing in there, whether you're vaccinated or not, they still want you wearing masks. So I think that closer contact is still very prevalent and maybe contingent upon verification and those things. So I think we're seeing that in that area, which is kind of surprising even for adults.
And I think that's the thing is that, you know, a lot of us may go to the Costco without our masks or grocery stores without our masks, but you get on an airplane, you still need to put the mask on, and you get on the CTA, you still got to put the mask on, and those kind of things. So it's just kind of, you know, it's not going to be a perfect situation where it's 100% maskless everywhere you go. We are a public entity, and we need to, you know, behave and act in the best interest of the entire community, and not just the students, but also the neighbors and everyone else that lives there. So it's just the decisions that we have to make and we have to look at.
Now, do we have somebody on the buses that kind of regulates that to make sure the kids, I mean, the younger ones, I'm looking at more, having been a
junior high teacher, junior high not wanting to normally comply. The little ones are pretty much whatever they're told they're gonna do, but do they have somebody that kind of makes sure, Ron, I know this is you.
Yeah, I know. So most reg ed transportation does not. Unfortunately, the unemployment benefits are still greater than what it would be just to work for a lot of people who would be in that position. So we've relied a lot on our own staff. When kids come off or bus drivers report items, I know Katie and I talk often about how to regulate that. So our concerns are just as great as yours with that.
We will continue to have masks available on all of our buses this year going forward, though. So our bus drivers, and if we have aides on the bus, they're always ready and able to give a child a mask before they enter.
Cool.
And Patty, the other thing to keep in mind, which is great for us, is that both of our bus companies have indicated that our drivers in particular love working with our kids. So when it comes to maybe they have 6 or 7 different districts that they work with, the preference is 59, and they have actually expressed. I've never heard anything like it. So they take their jobs seriously compared to what I've seen in other places. It's been it's a good feeling in such a tough environment.
Okay, thank you.
So any further items related to school reopening?
I just had one thing. I should have given it during my board report, but I didn't. I forgot. I went over to Claremont School and took a look at the new construction that's being done in the entrance. And the 2 gentlemen who took me in and showed me around were lovely, so that I didn't walk where I shouldn't have been and so forth. I was accompanied. The office that was an office is now a classroom, and it's almost finished. And it looks really good from what I could tell. I mean, no painting or anything like that, but I mean, it looks like a classroom. The other one, which was a classroom and is now going to be an office, is still in work. However, I was there about a week ago, so I'm sure they've made quite a bit of progress since then. But it's coming along really well. I only went to the one school.
Thanks, Mardell. Thanks for doing the visit.
The one quick final comment on the reopening plan for Dr. Bresnahan. Is there a plan to communicate what the plan is to everyone?
Yes, absolutely. So we've created kind of a reopening plan like 2.0. So we copied last year's plan, and now we're revising that. We're actually creating a 1-page summary sheet. We had that in progress, and then Friday's guidance came out like right in the midst of us writing it. So now we're scrambling again to make sure that the information that we're putting out is based on what we know, and that all plans are subject to change. So that will be communicated out. I think we're targeting hopefully by middle of this week. The other piece is that reopening plan is required to be posted publicly for 30 days for public comment in order to apply for our ESSER 3 funds.
Okay.
So those things go in tandem. And again, we understand the urgency from our parents. I think what we communicated tonight is a lot of what we do know will be a return to some great normalcy. That mask piece and a couple of those other items, we hear you, we hear our families. We just need to hang in a little bit longer, because I don't want to put out something that I'm going to have to take back, a week later. So
And I know I said that was the final comment, but I have one more final comment. But I think that's a good point. Is, you know, at the beginning of this, we talked about our low rates and the low positivity rates, and things are actually really great outside, and we're all in here. But, you know, it's us having to analyze all of these issues, and like Dr. Bresnan said, speaking with local health experts and local governments and things like that, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Thanks, Robert. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Oh, sorry, can I just mention one thing before we go into
Yes, I
close?
don't mean to cut us off.
Sorry, so at your settings, our board members, you have a book that is for you. It's called Think Again by Adam Grant. This is actually our leadership team summer book study. So actually, Tom and I had both been listening. I think you were listening to the audio version, right? We had both been listening to the audio version, and then he brought up that we normally do a book study, and he suggested it, and I loved it. Joe, in particular, I think you with your scientific mind, because it's about thinking like a scientist and going into everything we do, knowing we're going to base it on data, we're going to analyze it, and then it's not about everything turning out perfectly the first time. It's recognizing we're going to have failures and we're going to have missteps, but it's how we approach it and how we change our way of thinking. So really excited. It's going to be kind of our driving theme with our leadership team, and really excited to engage in some conversations with all of you. And hopefully you will find some value in it as well. So enjoy.
Thanks for the thoughtful choice. That's excellent. Okay. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I will motion.
Thank
I'm on a roll. Be it resolved that on the 12th day of July 2021, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education recess in a closed meeting for discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district, I lost my place, or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the local government wage increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act.
Thanks, Patty. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Joe. And perhaps we'll take our vote, but then why don't we take a 5-minute recess and we'll reconvene for closed?
Look how fast we got out of here.
This is a record in my life on the board. 7:40. We did start at 6, but still. Thank you for that. I'll take credit.